Stereotype threats looks like this. In one experiment, the left side was primed. The second experiment, the primer was removed. The left side, black students perform half as well as their white counterparts. The right side, when race was removed, they performed better. Somebody said this: you have to work twice as hard to be half as good. How many of you picked that? That might be an example. Does that make sense? Can you hear? Words matter. What we say to each other, what we think about one another, how we interact with one another, all function to prime you and ultimately affects your performance. If we say damaging words, wake up, brother. If we say damaging words to one another, it affects that young man's performance. There's a piece of research says that it takes 11 good statements to erase one for the average person. 11 good statements to erase one. So think about the number of bad statements you as black men have on a daily basis. So what has to happen here at Morehouse College is that we have to provide, at least for every young brother, 11 good statements at every moment of his life. Does that make sense? So that means we can't use this. We can't say this. We can't, there are no niggers. There are no niggas. Don't get fancy with it. You can't do it. You can't do it. Now keep in mind, this research is, although I'm speaking specifically about black men, the same affects black women. There are no bitches in the AUC. You've heard me say that before. There are none. There are no hoes. No one's trifling. Everybody's grinding. Everybody's trying to make it happen. Huh? No, he said just a little bit. No, because you open the door to undermine that young person's success. Every person at this institution came here to be wildly victorious as it relates to their academics. Am I correct? No one on this campus has a right to undermine their brother's success. That's the same case as over across the fence at Spelman, across the AUC. Every student came here to put their best foot forward, to be excellent. One simple statement, because we know that words hurt. One simple statement seeks to undermine that. If you question whether or not your brother is stupid, we don't have to worry about what others do to him. You're doing it to him. Is that fair? So we got to get rid of these terms. Furthermore, excellent people don't use this language. You don't hear people of excellence talking like this. You came to Morehouse. You came here to be excellent. You came here to be exceptional men. Exceptional men don't talk this way. Don't even think this way. Because if you think this way, you undermine your own success. If you do not get rid of your white supremacist understanding of who you are and how other people who look like you function and exist in the world, if you don't get rid of your Petrarchian understanding of sex, of gender, you undermine not only your success, because you can't believe that about somebody who looks like you and think that you're not part of that. If you don't get rid of it, you undermine your own success as well as their success. You got to be exceptional men. That's why you're here. Without any excuses, including a little trifling. No such concept. HBCUs. Now, I said to you a few seconds ago that you came to a place that automatically primes you around the issue of race, right? It is to say, and Claude Steele will say this, the most radical black nationalist chronically underperforms as a student. Why? Because they obsess over race. And at the moment at which they're studying, performing academically, and it gets at the frontier of their knowledge base, they begin to question whether or not race is playing. If you are so wrapped around the axle of race, he says, then you fail to remove yourself from white supremacy. You following a brother, right? Such that you underperform. However, this is how we see ourselves. We see ourselves as scholars. We see ourselves as researchers. We see ourselves as leaders. We see ourselves as artists. We don't see ourselves as bitches and hoes, as niggas, as trifling, as stupid. We don't see ourselves that way. So we should never use those terms, but rather use these terms. These are the terms that excellent black students subscribe to. Does that make sense? These are the terms that we refer to ourselves. At Morehouse, our mission is to develop men who, with disciplined minds, will lead lives of leadership and service. Men, not grown boys, not trifling, but men who say that they will not only be brilliant, but will impact the world. At Morehouse, we determine that we are going to be brilliant and commit to excellence. At Morehouse, we love both ourselves and our people. That is crucial. That when you step on this campus, you demonstrate loving, committed, caring for one another. Remember, it takes 11 positive moments to erase all the damage that is done to us at any given moment. If we can't produce those 11 positive moments in this environment, it can't be done, folks. It can't be done. We operate with integrity, compassion, respect, truth, and spirituality. This is who we are. This is how we refer to one another. This is how we work with one another. We leave everybody in every place better than when we found them. That's who we are. It is really crucial that every single brother on this campus operates with that understanding. How do you overcome stereotype threat? My grandfather, a great philosopher, at least in my family, used to say, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And that holds true as it relates to stereotype threat. You have to remove sexism and racism from your own sphere, your own understanding of yourself and other selves. You have to personally remove it. If you do not remove those notions about yourself that don't lead you to victory, then you will always be affected by stereotype threat. You have to work hard. There's no substitute for working hard. You have to prepare. According to Claude Steele, the best thing to do to affect stereotype threat is to be prepared, because it doesn't feel as hard. Does that make sense? And finally, when the exam does get difficult, you have to do 3 things. Focus. Do not allow the stereotypes to rain down. Focus. Resource. Resource means go into what you know. Do not think about all of those things related to those stereotypes. You have to go to what you study and what you know. And finally, work hard in that moment. Do not give up. in that moment. Do not buy into in that moment. Habits of academic excellence. Choice. First, you have to make the choice to be excellent. Secondly, you have to vision yourself as being excellent as a way of habit. You have to see yourself again in victorious terms. And then thirdly, work hard. I want to pause on this idea real quickly. It's called growth versus fixed mindset. It's a leading research on the way top learners learn by a woman named Carol Dweck at Stanford. Carol Dweck says there are two types of learners. The fixed learner on the left here who believes intelligence is static, that there are those who are brilliant and those who are not. And those persons who are brilliant say, I'm just brilliant. I get everything. I understand everything. They avoid challenges. They give up easily due to obstacle and see efforts as fruitless. Those folks never come into their brilliance. It is because they approach learning like this. If you go to college, that doesn't work too well. Fundamentally, the reason you're in college is because you don't know everything. That's it. You don't know everything. If you did, you'd be teaching as opposed to learning. The growth mindset is the one who is wildly successful in college. That person says, I know that I don't know everything. That's exactly why I'm here. I will take every opportunity to learn more and more. That is, according to Carol Dweck, the factors that led to a Lee Iacocca, I'm dating myself, or a Michael Jordan, who said when he came into the pros, I don't know it all. I will work, I will grind, I will learn from the best to be the best. That mentality is a growth mindset. That's the mentality you take into that classroom. That's the mentality that leads you to ask questions, seek help. The growth mindset. Finally, Stephen Covey, who passed away in, I think, 2012, had these 7 habits of efficacy for highly effective people. He said, 1, be proactive. Don't ever be caught by surprise. Always be first there. Who was it? Was it Mays who said if you're on time, you're late? Did I get it right or do? Thank you. To be early is to be on time. To be on time is too late. The point is, you can't lead if you're constantly surprised. You can't lead if you're constantly surprised. Covey says be proactive. Be ahead of the game. You spot the point before anybody else gets there. That's what leaders do. Secondly, begin with the end in mind. Vision. Determine where you're going to be and chart your course for being there. Thirdly, put first things first. Be methodical in your approach. Be thoughtful in your approach. Be focused in your approach. Think win-win, always willing to negotiate. A fixed mindset person believes that they have the answer. A growth mindset person says, we will get to the answer together. Win-win. Fifth, first understand and then be understood. I had a mentor who said, he who has not studied shall not talk. He who has not studied shall not talk. Make sure you get it before you explain it. Does that make sense? Synergies. Work with people. Brilliant people don't work in isolation. Brilliant people work with other brilliant people, which leads us to that. He says, sharpen your saw. We say what? Exactly. That's how we get to our mutual brilliance. That's how we become folks who show up in the classroom and the professor walks out at the end of the classroom and said, I got to keep my game tight. When you do that, that is the highest form of flattery you could ever give your instructor. When you come prepared as she or he is, that's the highest form of you can give your instructor. Go back to, he who has not studied shall not talk. Finally, when there's no enemy inside, then enemy outside cannot hurt you. What that simply means, if I take you back to one of the first statements I said, move your center. If you buy into white supremacy, particularly its notion about your intellectual inferiority, if you buy into that enemy and you internalize that, then you undermine your success. Likewise, if you buy into this idea that something about you as a man makes you more intelligent as a woman, you undermine our sister's success. We are obliged, as the best and brightest in our country that you represent, to make sure that we operate with a lens, with a view that does not operationalize those two notions. So when I say move your center, get rid of the notion. Get rid of anything that leads you to think that intellectually you can't cut the mustard. You would not be here. You would not be among these other brilliant brothers if that were the case. And likewise, make sure you do all that you can for your sisters to not have them have that same self-doubt that you are accustomed to having. If you remove the enemy inside yourself, nothing anyone else external to you will ever do or can ever do will affect you. Thank you.
So we're getting ready to get out of here. I want to say just a couple of things. First of all, another round of applause for Tim Sams. So I'd be complicit in our own oppression if I didn't say this or ask this question. Are you a slave? There's a lot of dialogue. The idea, I spoke in the beginning. Listen, I spoke in the beginning of how it becomes important for us to resist. Dr. Sams talked about this idea of not being complicit with your own oppression in attaching to this white supremacist mindset. Quite honestly, I think a white supremacist mindset would be sleeping during a time when people are dropping gems. Quite honestly, I think a white supremacist mindset would have me see you have the glow of your iPad or your computer on your face, not taking notes, but looking at Instagram or Facebook or being funny. I would be complicit in our own oppression if I didn't point these things out to you and say, you guys got to do better. We are in a space in time where it is assumed that you are slaves. It is assumed that you are but a commodity. It is assumed that you are chattel. It is assumed that you leave here, you go out, and you become a cog in the wheel of white supremacy that grinds you to dust. If you do not begin to adopt the habits of excellence now, without getting mad at people who are correcting you, who care for you, and who love you, then you have lost for us. You all are in this space, presumably, because you're leaders, presumably because you're freedom fighters. You've got to occupy that space, brothers, because there are too many people who are betting on you to fail, but I'll be damned if I'm one of them. So when I asked you earlier, when I demanded of you earlier to be dreamers and to resist, that's not a rhetorical statement. You've got work to do. People who were enslaved worked too hard to put your butts in the seats that you sit in now, just straight up and down. And we're not even talking about people who are enslaved. Your grandmama, your mama, your daddy, your auntie worked too hard for you to sit in here and to dismiss the things that we're saying by the posture that you adopt or by ignoring what it is that's being said. Does that make sense? Does it make sense or not? So let me ask you to do this before we sing the hymn. Let me ask you to just say, because language is power. Let me just ask you all to say, resist. You don't mean it. Resist. 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 Let's stand up and sing the hymn.